Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are facing down the bullet of hyperinflation mixed with recession. We could call it hyper stagflation. This out of Financial Times. Rising inflation sparks fears of hard landing for U.S. economy. That hard landing is not only the fact that there is a hyperinflationary event that is basically will mark the end of the dollar as a world reserve currency, but also the fact that we won't have any food on the shelves. We won't have electricity that we could use. I mean, this is down to the level where they are just trying to destroy whatever good conveniences they've weakened the public with throughout all the United States, throughout the rest of the world, and it's all part of a greater plan. And obviously that is the Great Reset. Obviously, they are moving into a new world reserve currency that's cashless, tied to carbon credits, tied to supply chain, tied to your food rationing, tied to social credit, and all of the likes. Of course, this is all about bringing in the Internet of Things and controlling people to the slaughter. Eat the bugs, they say. I think not. In this video, we're going to get into some of that because even CNN is pointing out how ridiculous Joe Biden looks for taking a victory lap on inflation while the stock market tanks because of inflation. And of course, the Inflation Reduction Act leads to more inflation. This is peak Orwellian doublethink, my friends. So we are going to get into that and much, much more today. But before we do, a word from our sponsor, which of course is Patriot Gold Group, which you can find the link in the description below. As I've been trying to tell people, Russia, China, and India are saying goodbye to the US dollar as Biden is paying off student loans and printing more money. Earlier this summer, Putin announced a new reserve currency along with Brazil, India, China, and possibly Saudi Arabia. The global de-dollarization trend is accelerating, and some say the new reserve currency called BRICS could be backed by gold. It could happen. The stock market and housing are crashing. Meanwhile, September is historically the worst month of the year for stocks. JP Morgan said September 21st, the Fed will do a mega-sized rate hike. Sounds like this can only go from bad to worse. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention WHAM, W-A-M, or Josh Sigurdson when you do, and you'll get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no-fee-for-life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 888-565-1505 for a free investor guide today. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 6 years in a row, my friends. Call 888-565-1505. And of course, you can find the link in the description of this video. Just scroll down and you will see it. Anyways, I hope you get involved. And of course, we are always happy for good sponsors that do good work. Also, as always, make sure to check the links below for heavensharvest.com for long-term storable food that's non-GMO, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, gardening resources, and more. Use code WHAM, that's W-A-M, and you get free shipping on most of these products in the United States. And even if you aren't in the United States, still use code WHAM because it helps keep our operation alive while keeping you alive as well. The best way to fight this war isn't with violence. The best way to fight this war is with independence, with self-sustainability. Be human. Of course, live by example. And the best way to do that is being prepared. And having non-GMO storable food is very, very important at this point in time. So go over there, use code WAM. Anyway, let's get to this. Now, as the Financial Times says, rising inflation sparks fears of hard landing for U.S. economy. Increasing consumer prices prompts Wall Street sell-off as investors bet on aggressive Fed response. The thing is, this is a control collapse. What they're doing as a response to what they've already done to cause all these problems in the first place will lead to more problems. The Inflation Reduction Act is all just a climate act, essentially, that causes more printing of currency. Again, 25% of all currency ever printed in the United States happened in 2020. Insanity. And of course, Jerome Powell has been wrong on everything and on purpose. I mean, he called it transitory. I mean, we've been calling this for years, my friends. It's insane. Janet Yellen recently said, I see no evidence of a recession in my lifetime. Well, except for we're already in a recession. In fact, the one from 2008 never ended. It was just papered over, papered and papered and papered over. And now this Inflation Reduction Act just gives money to giant corporations while printing a bunch of currency, causing inflation to rise further. And people are surprised. And we're seeing this in the rest of the world too. It's a controlled collapse, my friends. As this article says, hopes that the Federal Reserve can engineer a soft landing for the U.S. economy took a hit on Tuesday when a crucial measure of inflation came in higher than forecast and triggered a sharp sell-off on Wall Street. Well, keep in mind that the way they measure inflation is wrong. First of all, it's like how they measure employment. They measure unemployment by the unemployment rate rather than the labor force participation rate, which is where people should be looking. But nonetheless, on top of that, I want to point out that if you go by the 1980 standards, we're already over 20% inflation, and some products, many products, are as high as 400% inflation. Have you gone to the store lately? It's insane. It's absolute unrivaled insanity. It says here further on in this article, it says the consumer price index increased 0.1% for August, above economists' expectations for a 0.1% drop. Most worryingly is policymakers' core inflation, which strips out volatile items like energy and food, rose by 0.6% for an annual increase of 6.3% compared to 5.9% recorded for July. Now, by the way, does it feel like only 6.3%? Because it's not. It's not. It's demonstrably not only 6.3%. They are so manipulative how they measure these. So it's much worse. And again, you could find at John Williams Shadow Stats the real inflation numbers based on the 1980 standard. Continues here. It says the figures from the Bureau of Labor Statistics brought an end to a brief respite for Fed officials after July's reading showed that prices had not risen compared to the prior month. That's hilarious. Wall Street was caught off guard by the hotter than expected inflation figures. Well, because they are idiots or they are evil. It's one or the other, or maybe just both. You know, the S&P 500 closed down 4.3%, the worst performance since June of 2020. The NASDAQ composite, which is stacked with technology companies that are more sensitive to changes in interest rate expectations, ended Tuesday more than 5% lower. And you could see U.S. stocks suffer biggest drawdown since June 2020 here on this chart. And it says in government debt markets, the yield on the 2-year U.S. Treasury, which is more sensitive to interest rate expectations, surged by roughly 0.2 percentage points at 3.75%, having traded at 3.52% before the release of the inflation data. The odds the Federal Reserve would opt for full percentage point rate rise in September rose to roughly 30%, according to CME Group, versus 0% at the start of the week. Most economists are forecasting another 0.75 percentage point rate hike, which would lift the Fed funds rate to a new target range of 3% to 3.25%. Now, by the way, this interest rate hike is absolutely crazy in the middle of this crisis. I mean, they usually raise rates as much as they can so that they can cushion the blow when they drop them out in a serious economic or like a financial problem or crisis. So, for example, between 2008 and 2012, we saw a 5.5% decrease in the interest rate. So we recently went into negative rate territory, and now they're pushing up into by 75 basis points each time, and potentially as much as a whole percentage point in the near future. Again, this is extremely, extremely catastrophic, and I don't think people have yet understood the the ripple effect that this will cause worldwide. Remember, world reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, which Jerome Powell just recently said that he expects the U.S. to lose its reserve currency status soon, and that's why they're working on creating CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, as an aid to this problem. Now, the Bank of Canada back in 2015, 2016 talked about central bank digital currencies, and now we know BRICS is moving into their basket of currencies, world reserve currency replacement system, which is backed up by, of course, China, Russia, Brazil, India. And of course, we now have Turkey going in that direction after the Turkish lira collapse. We'll see that echo across through the euro into the dollar as well. And of course, Egypt and even Saudi Arabia. That is absolutely massive news. And again, people go, oh, I don't pay attention to the finance stuff. It's boring. It is the most important thing you could possibly pay attention to, my friends. It's how you are controlled. Meanwhile, even CNN is pointing out how ridiculous Joe Biden looks for taking a victory lap on inflation while the stock market tanks because of inflation. And it's you know, it's bad when CNN is saying, hey, why do you keep saying the economy is the best ever? How could you possibly say the economy is the best ever? I mean, you have to be mentally ill, stupid, or just a blatant liar. And I think all of those apply to Biden. Pretty sure all of those apply to Biden. And of course, you know, again, at the end of a civilization, you have demoralization, and Biden definitely shows all signs of being the last president, quite possibly. But I mean, we're talking about a guy who's running around pooping his pants and walking into walls, doesn't know what year it is, doesn't even know who the president is, and has a son working with the Chinese government and the Ukrainian government with him for him, which the FBI is on the side of, as he smokes crack and molests children. So again, this is pretty over the top crazy. And to see CNN even acknowledge that is, well, they do have a new leadership over at CNN, but it's still CIA. So I mean, that should always have been the term for CNN is CIA. And we're seeing this all over the world. Again, collapse of an empire, collapse of the West, move into the new system. That's the whole idea. And this out of CNBC, it says UK inflation rate unexpectedly dips to 9.9% as fuel prices decline. This is idiotic. This is pure idiocy, because keep in mind that Liz Truss, the new prime minister, just like on the day she got into office, announced that she was spending, I think, over 100, almost 200 billion pounds to combat the energy crisis. So people, because all these restaurants and businesses are shutting down due to their insane heating bills, which we've gone into in recent videos, which I urge you to check out. I mean, we've done a lot on the energy crisis, and we've seen bills that are just so insanely through the roof, my friends, that one has to contemplate where we're going to go next, because thousands of businesses have closed now. Thousands of businesses have closed, and Liz Truss says, oh, we'll solve this by printing hundreds of billions of pounds, which will lead to insane hikes in inflation later on, because we're already seeing that domino effect, and the businesses going under cause more scarcity in the market, which causes prices to go up, and then wages go up, and those wages are met with further inflation, and less people have money to spend, so more businesses go under. It's a snowball effect. It's a ripple effect, my friends, and it couldn't be more obvious at this point. Again, look back in time. The Weimar Republic inflation, their hyperinflationary event led to people putting bills in wheelchairs and burning their currency. I think it was a Reichmark, burning their currency in order to keep warm in the winter, because it costs less to just set their currency on fire than pay their energy bills. Think about that for a second, my friends. Think about that. This is something we are seeing today, but on a technocratic scale with a new replacement system that's even worse. And they replaced that system with a system that was even worse. I mean, where have people been? We're just repeating history over and over again, but each time it's worse. If you look at these historic photos, I mean, they used it as wallpaper at one point in that era. And I mean, you can see this photo here if you're watching rather than listening on the podcast. If you're watching, you'll see kids playing with a kite made out of the Reichmark. I mean, we're here again. We have wallpaper. There's a German man using the Reichmark as wallpaper. Now, this time it's cashless mostly. Only I think about 3% of money is in cash. So that is also going to have a major resounding echo effect, and the run on the banks won't be possible because they're not the savings and loans banks of the past, my friends. These are giant corporate fiction banks tied to the Federal Reserve, and we're dealing with types of debt that we've never seen before. Again, I want you guys to keep in mind this: the cash to deposit ratio at the banks and most major banks is under 1%, which means most of the deposits aren't there. Like 99% of your deposits aren't in the bank. There's no cash. It's debt. It's all debt. We saw this just a few years ago in Venezuela. This roll of toilet paper cost bricks of cash. And just like we saw in the Weimar Republic, people made things out of the cash because the cash was basically useless. I don't know what he's making out of this. It looks like a basket of some kind. And the inflation rate was just astronomical. The again, we are going to see this again, but on a global scale. Now, it won't be as insane as the Weimar Republic or the Bolivar in Venezuela, not to the same scale, but it'll be more have a more resounding, more dangerous effect. We won't see 1 trillion x, devaluation. We won't see that. We will see the dollar just completely collapse. People stop using it, and this move into the new system, which has been there for a long time. I have to mention this IMF article because it's hilarious. Because of course, IMF is being replaced by BRICS. IMF has a special drawing rights, a basket of currencies. BRICS is creating their new currency, which is a basket of currencies as well. And this article out of the IMF in their blogs from September 14th, 2022 today says energy shocks amid rapid inflation could fuel faster wage gains. Are they serious? Like faster wage gains? So people will have a higher wage. Oh, those socialists are going to be so happy about this. Oh man, everyone gets to make more money. They put more zeros after things, but they won't even notice that they won't be able to afford as much as before. It's pretty basic. This is basic economics 101. You bring the wages up as they're doing in Canada to eventually $15 an hour. And guess what happens? You buy less than you did at $11 an hour. So this is just an economic lesson for the most basic level of economics, like pre-entry into high school economics. Like it's so obvious. But again, this is all part of the plot. They confuse people. Nobody knows what's going on. They have no idea how their money works. So if you don't control your own money, if you don't understand your own money, you don't control your own money. If you don't control your own money, you are owned by the people who control the money. And that apparatus is the central banking system. And I was recently at the Tower of Basel, which is interestingly modeled after the Tower of Babel in Basel, Switzerland. And I did a video over there in person. And that is a central bank of central banks. And if their symbolism doesn't set you off in itself as we go into this great reset, the Tower of Babel, then I don't know what will. The idea is that they are creating a new Tower of Babel, essentially. So it's a war on humanity, most of all. But let's go back. Henry Kissinger meets with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s to create an artificial alliance with China, which, of course, was suffering a starvation event at that time. They prop China up and save China from this economic catastrophe. And that leads to this monopoly for China. Leading out of that monopoly, Zbigniew Brzezinski in the late 1970s under the Carter administration creates the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission's goal was to create a technocratic superstate worldwide using an economic apparatus, and they used China as the main hub, the main guinea pig state. And they wanted less empathy. They wanted more control. They wanted a digital system. And at that time, they called it an electronic system that controlled everyone's movement, everyone's payments, everyone's money at all times. Now, in 1912, 1913, Federal Reserve Act with the IRS and, interestingly, the FBI at the same time, they're created. And the idea is to create basically a system of creating more IOU notes than they have gold. That creates a vast amount of debt, that causes inflation, that causes more control. That means that purchasing power goes down. And then in the 1970s, Nixon took the United States off the gold standard, which made it 10 times worse, into a new fiat standard based on the first fiat currency that existed, which was in 1024 AD, the Sung Dynasty in China. And it's symbolic, obviously, for a reason here. So that currency is continuously printed and printed and printed. We see insane amounts of inflation, costs skyrocket. Nobody knows why. So they say, oh, well, it's these big corporations. It's these rich people. We need more taxes. Inflation is a tax. These taxes then are utilized against small businesses, while the big businesses can easily get around these taxes. And so small businesses collapse. We see a giant monopolization of these giant corporations. And the socialists come in and say, we need more taxes. And those additional taxes and regulations and red tape and permits and all sorts of monetary gain for the state over business and enterprise lead to, again, less small businesses and the propping up of giant businesses. And we can even say the same thing for so-called free healthcare in places. So essentially, big pharma corporations get all the money from the taxes for healthcare, and nurses aren't available. So if you go to Canada, you'll see that you have to wait 12 hours in a waiting room. Even the architect of healthcare in Canada, Jack Layton, had to flee the country when he had cancer to get work done in other places because it was just such a terrible system that he created himself. And he ended up dead, by the way. But point is, then that causes drug prices to go up, which there are patents on, so no one can compete. And then worldwide, we see the prices go up. So in the United States, the prices go up, and then everyone blames lack of free healthcare. You see how this works? They create the problem, they come in with a reaction, and then they come in with a solution. That is the Hegelian dialectic. And they have been utilizing this against people for years because people don't learn from their mistakes, because they get normalized to these things and they get socially conditioned as to how these things happen. And that social conditioning leads to them having the wrong ideas of how this even works. So again, they print all this currency, they have all this monopolization, they destroy small businesses, they have property taxes, so you don't own property. They have all these little entry points for the normalization to then lead into a great reset later on. Now, eventually, they know all fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. It always has, always will. Well, we're getting to that point. The U.S. world reserve currency is seeing massive devaluation, just insane. 25% of all currency ever created in the United States happened in 2020. And now with the Inflation Reduction Act, they're creating more currency to stop inflation, which causes more inflation, my friends. It causes more inflation. It is obvious that they are trying to enslave humanity in debt. And then everyone begs for help, and they come in with their solution, which is selling your soul, essentially selling off your humanity. We'll get to that at another point. But again, that currency is collapsing. They have the special drawing rights at the IMF, which is supposed to be a basket of currencies that they wanted to create a world reserve currency around. But they are moving out of their new empire, it is a new empire from the 1990s. The Euro system, this global economic system, was really propped up in the 1990s into what they would call a new world order. Well, now that new world order is an old world order already, and that new world order was promoted with conflict, war, proxy wars, and insane police state restrictions, and of course the devaluing of a currency and the enslavement of mankind in poverty and debt. And now with the pandemic in 2020, housing prices are incredibly high, moratoriums are expiring, and essentially the government will repackage these homes and give it away for free with smart meters attached to your carbon credit score, which will be tied to the new BRICS world reserve currency, because China and Russia are creating a new world reserve currency, again, based on a basket of currencies. And Brazil's involved, and Turkey's involved, and India is involved, and the Philippines are involved, and Iran is involved, and Egypt is involved, and Saudi Arabia is looking to be involved. And that's the biggest one. That just finishes it off. And so they say it'll be a cashless system based within social credit scores, like we already see in China. So worldwide, imagine that is the currency standard. And it'll be attached to that social credit, which will also be attached to that carbon credit system, where because of the energy crisis, that is the excuse. They say, we will monitor through a smart meter on your home, how much water you use, how much electricity you use, how much gas you use. And that will dictate how much food rations you'll be allowed. And it'll dictate how much you're allowed to drive on the highways. And Bill Gates is building a bunch of highways that, of course, will have carbon credit checkpoints, just like toll roads. They've already announced they're doing this. The Netherlands is moving into carbon credits. Canada is talking about this. The Netherlands got rid of 30% of all farms and the second top agricultural exporter in the world. And Canada's trying to do the same thing, and Ireland's trying to do the same thing, and they're eradicating property rights in Ireland. So do you see what's happening yet? This is a new system. So they knew eventually there'd be a case where it would all topple over. So they knew they don't want to be, put on trial for crimes against humanity. They have to utilize this to move into another system because people are too dim-witted, generally speaking, to understand how this all came to be. They've been too normalized to it. And when they've been normalized to it, they don't recognize when they come in with a perfect solution for tyranny, for a police state, for technocracy, for a new world order, for the Great Reset, for the fourth industrial revolution, if you will. With their solution, they will enslave the human race, drive people against each other, basically utilize Russia and Ukraine as something they can blame for the situation that they created in the first place. They knew it was eventually going to happen. And so do these other countries. They've all been working together. Again, US propped up China. US propped up Russia. The US was part of their own demise. They have been purposely destroying their own empire, and now they're pushing civil war. They're pushing this idea that anyone that doesn't support the president is an extremist. And meanwhile, they're saying that the economy has never been better as the ship goes down, as people can't afford gas, as people can't afford groceries, as people stop eating out, which is causing restaurants to go under on top of their energy bills and the inflation of the products. I mean, this is historic what we're watching right now. So that's why it's bigger than any of the economic collapses we've seen in world history. That is why. And of course, again, it's not going to be 1 trillion times increase in devaluation. What we're going to see instead is a much lower amount of hyperinflation versus these other places. Because remember, the Turkish lira went down and they moved into the new BRICS system. The euro is going to be the next major currency to collapse, and then the US dollar final. That is the end of the story, my friends. That is the end of the story. And they will utilize this in order to move out of one empire into another. Demoralization, destruction of the economy, clashing people against each other. It is the perfect modus operandi. So you, my friends, have to get prepared. I mean, you have to get into privacy coins, in my opinion. Get out of the banks. Just pull your money out of the banks. This isn't investment advice, my friends. This is just basic logic. Do what you want to do, but get your money out of the bank. Get out of big cities. Ration your own food before you get their rations that are probably poisonous and have mRNA in it, as they've been developing at the University of California as well as in Mexico. We need to get prepared in these ways. Again, if you don't want to be in a tiny home, which, by the way, The Guardian, which is run by Bill Gates, essentially funded by Bill Gates, recently said he wants to get rid of free-range farms in exchange for people moving into big cities, into urban sprawls, because he says that will end inflation. What? How you get rid of free range farms? Because free range farms cause pollution. How do free range farms cause pollution, my friends? And big cities don't. Okay. They want you in big cities in tiny homes, so you have to do the opposite. Whatever they say, you have to do the opposite. So get out of big cities, get out of the banking system, get prepared, get storable foods, get gold and silver, get things that you can utilize to make yourself independent outside of that system, so that you aren't used as a tool for that system, for that collapse, for that building of their new Tower of Babel. This is a war on humanity. So the solution is to be more human, be more free, be more individualistic, live by example, live freely always. And if you don't, you have to explain to your children later on why you did nothing in the most historic point in history when you could. Anyway, I urge you guys to go to heavensharvest.com, use code WAM, WAM, and get non-GMO storable foods. You get free shipping if you use code WAM. And there's heirloom seeds, and there's water filtration and storage. There is gardening resources, survival resources. There's books on how to get started. Check out Patriot Gold, the link in the description of this video, our sponsor today. And I truly believe in it. I don't just take any sponsor, my friends. I turn down basically every sponsor, but I urge people to go and check out this, because you can actually hold physical gold and all that too. And of course, if you want to, save your savings, your retirement, we have a link for that. Bit.ly link in the description for Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, a certified financial planner. He's been speaking out against the Great Reset for many years. And of course, hyperinflation or recession. We'll be having him on again very soon in the next couple of days. Go and get your free initial consultation, your free portfolio review with him there. And of course, we have a bunch of other options. As always, whamsurvival.com, long-term storable foods. You could get there as well. We are retiring that link right away. But if you want, you could go to whamsurvival.com, get long-term storable foods, save a bunch of money there. Those deals are going to be gone soon. And of course, we have rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. You can get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. I'm going to finish this off for today. You heard us. Get out of the bank. Get out of big cities if you can, and prepare yourself. If you're in a big city, you have no choice. You have a wife, or an ex-wife rather. You have kids, you're shared custody. You just can't get out of the big cities. Understood. A lot of people are in that situation. Get storable foods at least. I mean, it's just basic. I'm like thinking of just not promoting that anymore, because at this point, if you haven't, it's just insanity. And we have other things that we need to promote to people as well. Anyway, it's all about solutions to this insanity. There's no better way than money than that they can control the populace with. And so we need to also contemplate, again, privacy coins, stuff like that, gold and silver. Check those links below, my friends. Anyway, I'm going to finish it off there. Check out ways that you can help support us at Independent Media. We have gogetfunding.com, Patreon, Subscribestar. We have a PayPal address, we have a Bitcoin address, and we have a Cointree link with multiple different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please, including Monero, the privacy coin. We also have an Epic FundMe campaign linked in the description for Epic Cash, a privacy coin based on the Mimblewimble protocol. You can donate in that as well there. And you can find out more about Epic Cash at Epic Cash Community on Telegram. We're not paid by them. We just support what they do. We have a Teespring store where you can get a bunch of merchandise, which I urge you to do as well. And of course, we are on Rockfin, World Alternative Media. $9.99 a month will get you exclusive content, including documentaries and Q&As if you send us questions. And that goes up to those that pledge on Patreon and Subscribestar as well. We also have a Telegram group, World Alternative Media, a Telegram channel, World Alternative Media Announcements. We have a newsletter, www.imband.com, where you can sign up with your email. It takes 2 seconds. And of course, we are on band.video. A shout out to Alex Jones for that. Thank you for that. And obviously the people that we're able to reach with this message of voluntarism and individualism and humanity. We're on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. If you haven't subscribed on Rumble yet, I really urge you to do that. We're trying to build that up because Rumble is beating YouTube in the App Store right now, and we need to make sure that we reach new audiences, new people, and mobilize them for the future of humanity. So if you can go and subscribe on Rumble, we appreciate that. World Alternative Media, of course. We are on Hive, Steemit, Float.app, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson, and we're on the bad guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Podbean, worldaltmedia.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Of course, I have no idea why we're still on there, but we're still on there. So go ahead and follow us and give us a good rating if you haven't already. And as always, my friends, as we close this off, hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, which is, of course, very important, and hit subscribe if you, for some reason, have not already. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.